את ריח הכפרים בפעמון ליבנו יקוע עדרים ישנת במרוגת וקרן אור יפה ולאורה נפסע ברגל יחפה עוד לא תמו כל מלאייך עוד הזמר לא שט עוד ליבי מכה מלאייך ולוחש לו בלט עד ליד תחת עד ליד דמובת עד ליד המעט שנותר עד ליד המעט שנותר
תודה רבה שהגעתם לטקס זיכרון למיירה קראפט, שולמית, בת יעקב וציפורה. הטקס התנהל בשפה אנגלית, עלינו בווידאו דווקא בשפה עברית, אז אנחנו נשדר את זה בהמשך. The football community in Israel received the news of the passing of Myra Kraft with great sadness. During the past 12 years, Myra gave her love and support to the many thousands of people in Jerusalem and elsewhere in Israel who have been able to enjoy Kraft Family Stadium. Myra nurtured and adopted the Israeli women's football program, and we are all well aware that without her willing assistance, WAFI would have been hard-pressed to reach its current levels of success. Every time she visited Israel, Myra made it her business to visit Kraft Stadium and showed personal affection for so many of our female athletes. You'll get to meet them in just a few moments. Myra was a great lover of Israel and supporter of numerous Jewish causes. So many people in Israel and in Jewish communities in distress around the world have benefited from her generous philanthropy. But to us, at Kraft Family Stadium, Myra was really a member of our family. She was loved, she gave love in return, she will be mourned for a long time, and she will be remembered forever. Once again, thank you all for coming here today. We have many speakers, and we're going to be asking our speakers to keep their remarks brief. At this point, I'd like to introduce two people that Myra got to know very well. The coach of the women's national team, the man who really founded the entire program, Yona Mishan, and the best quarterback in Europe, and certainly the heart of the football program in Israel, Shana Sprung.
Okay, you bet. תודה לכולם שבאתם. When we started off on this journey, it was just myself and a group of very determined young women. After meeting Myra for the first time, I realized we had a true partner who not only allowed us to be secure and to compete at the highest level, but a woman that didn't know what it meant to lose. From a dinner party or straight from the airport, she always showed up and made us feel like we're the most important thing on her very busy agenda. I will miss her, and so will all of Myra's girls. We couldn't have done this without you. Yeh Zecha Baruch.
like so many others here, the first time I met Myra was on that cold and wet night 8 years ago. We didn't have this turf field yet, and there was mud everywhere. Myra walked in all dressed up. She was coming back from an official dinner and was wearing a nice winter coat and those famous high heels. The sight of Myra trekking through the mud is legendary within our league, but for me and my team, the image that will always stay with us is Myra stopping by the field every year in her polo shirt and jeans, just to say hi and take some time to talk with us. She would come every year, sometimes twice. When she visited, she would greet each of us with a kiss and ask what each of us was up to. She cared about what we were doing as a team, but more than that, she cared about what each of us was doing as people. She genuinely wanted to know what we were doing off the field and that we were finding success in all areas of our lives. By every count, Myra was such an important and well-known woman, both in the Jewish community and worldwide. Yet her ability to be so down to earth and show the utmost care for each and every person was remarkable. And it was because of that very trait that Myra will always be remembered by our team first and foremost as a true loving friend. Myra made my dream and the dream of all my teammates come true. She gave Orthodox Jewish women the chance to play sports on the highest level and represent the country we love. Personally, football has become a huge part of my life. I know I can speak for the rest of my team when I say that not only would we not be where we are today without Myra, but we also wouldn't be who we are today without the support and guidance and ultimate love of Myra. I'm almost done, don't worry. When I first found out Myra passed, I was shocked. We knew that she had been sick, but still, when she came to visit us, she never showed any sign of weakness or pain. I think she didn't want us or other people worrying about her. All she cared about was us and making sure we were okay and taken care of. She was selfless, even in her darkest times. This is a huge loss for anyone that had the opportunity to meet Myra, but perhaps an even greater loss for those who will never get the chance to meet her at all. My team is honored to say that they had a meaningful relationship with Myra. Got it? And we will miss her tremendously. Every accomplishment that our team has experienced and anything that we achieve in the future is a tribute to her and the unwavering support she showed toward the team and program. I will make sure that every girl and woman who joins this league and national teams knows who Myra Kraft is. And not just the name Myra Kraft, but to truly understand what a unique and special person that Myra really was. In a few short weeks, our national team will be traveling to France for the European Championships. We will honor Myra with patches on our jerseys, but more than that, we will honor her with our fight and determination. We learn from the best.
It's really a sad moment, and I vividly remember the last meeting with Myra, with Zvika Livnat in Tel Aviv, and the whole team she brought from Boston, something that she and Bob used to do every year. And she was so vivid and full of life, and we had a very personal talk then. And it really was, as it was said before, a surprise to get the message that she passed away. Myra, dear friends, was mainly a friend. She was a friend of many groups. She was a friend of newcomers. She was a friend of children at risk. She was a friend of Israelis, of Jerusalemites. She really loved people. She loved Israel, and you can sense it. We are not mistaken about it. We know it comes across. We feel it. I can, when I talk about Myra, picture some of the meetings that she had in our really long visits, because whenever she came to Israel, the key thing was going to the field. And I can picture few situations, like coming in Hedera to this home of a Kafkazi family. Not very many Americans knew about the immigration from the Caucasus. But Myra knew about that first, and Barry is nodding his head because probably she drove you crazy about their absorption. Myra was very dedicated to different cultures. She loved culture, she loved people. And sitting on the floor and eating the food that this Kafkazi family prepared in Hedera is a picture that I cherish in my when I think about Myra.
Myra fits well to this concept of a virtuous person. Her conviction in the value of other people led her to various activities intended to help them. The great American philosopher Michael Jordan once said, "You miss 100% of the shots you don't take." I know that Myra didn't miss any opportunity to help other people. Myra's support of moral values, which is expressed in her assistant to people all over the world, can be taken as an example of life devoted to keep the other in view. Myra has touched the lives of many at the University of Haifa and the city of Haifa. We are sincerely grateful to her great support for our research program on early childhood development and our open apartment project for student housing. The strong relationship between the University of Haifa and the Boston Jewish community is no small part due to the kindness of Myra, who over the years generously hosted our delegations to the Boston area and introduced our researchers and projects to the members of the community. Myra was a most deserving recipient of the university's highest honor, an honorary doctorate degree. Myra was a treasured friend of the University of Haifa and will be sorely missed both as a philanthropist and as a most caring individual. Yehi Zichra Baruch. Thank you.
We'll now have a brief musical interlude just to explain. The first song that you'll be hearing was the song that was played at Myra and Robert Kraft's wedding, and then was played at Myra's most recent funeral. And the second song is about the city that Myra, I think, most loved in Israel and maybe in the whole world.
River wider than a mile, I'm crossing you in style someday. Oh, dream maker, you heartbreaker, wherever you're going, I'm going your way. Two drifters waiting round the world. There's such a lot of world to see. Where after the same rainbows end, waiting round the bend, my huckleberry friend, moon, river, and me.
Dan, Wendy, sharing grief so deep, so personal, in such a public way, takes considerable courage. But Jewish tradition contends that the pain of the individual is connected to the pain of the community. Just as the destruction of Zion and Jerusalem is mourned by the entire nation of Israel, so too does the entire community share in the mourning of the individual's loss, since all of Israel constitutes a single body. It is also enormously comforting to look around the Kraft Stadium as the sun sets over Jerusalem, to know how much support you have and to what extent Myra, knowingly and unknowingly, impacted upon the lives of hundreds and thousands here in Jerusalem and throughout the state of Israel. Why have so many of us turned out to honor Myra's memory? It's because Myra cared, Myra was passionate, Myra was engaged, Myra was tough, Myra was determined, Myra was courageous, Myra was compassionate, Myra was a woman of valor, an Eshet Chayil. Well-rooted in the home of her parents, Francis and Jacob Hyatt, Myra, together with her husband Robert and her father, dedicated a garden in 1984 in memory of Francis. It's become a city landmark, embellished by a statue of a stallion right in the heart of Jerusalem city center. This began a 3-decade-long relationship with the Jerusalem Foundation. On Myra's frequent visits to Jerusalem, she would inevitably visit the garden. When improvements were needed, she made it known. It produced results. This pattern of style and attention to detail intensified as we worked together with your family, Dan, with you, Steve, and the city authorities to develop this stadium, which is busy day and night, 7 days a week. Everyone who passes here sees that. Myra was a true partner. We shared a common purpose. The rebuilding of Jerusalem in our times is a singular and privileged opportunity. The baton continues to be carried by your father, Robert, a member of the board of the Jerusalem Foundation in the USA, to whom we extend our deepest sympathies, and by you, Dan and Wendy, representing the next generation. May the Almighty comfort you among the mourners of Zion and Jerusalem.
Dear Dan and Wendy, family and dear friends of Myra, I heard very carefully the speeches before me, and I look at the people that came to pay respect. And I think it says a lot about Myra, the influence, the scope, the breadth, and the depth of the work she has done in Israel and also back in Boston. I heard multiple subjects, multiple cities, multiple countries, and it shows and it tells something about a person that dedicates his life to invest and give to others. And it's not only what has been done, but I also had the pleasure and honor of meeting Myra. And it's the way she did business, the way she did philanthropy, that made us and myself feel considerably lucky to have had the honor and pleasure of working with her. Mainly my work with her was through the Jerusalem Foundation, continuing things that have started off with Teddy and Ehud, went through Lupliansky, and now with us it's our shift. But when she came to my office, it was always with a huge smile, well prepared, complimenting all the time, asking questions. I felt that people come to my office, I want to convince them that we're doing the right thing. But with her, she was convincing me about things. She came, she was always fully there, fully prepared for action. And it was well known that Myra, wherever she is physically, doesn't matter because her heart is always with us in the projects she was engaged with. And I also felt it through what the team, the football team, practically conveyed. Last year, when I heard that she's joining the board of the Jerusalem Foundation, I said to myself, great opportunity. These are people you really want to work with. And it was very sad for me to hear that this plan was cut short. However, I am sure that we will continue the relationship with the family to think through together what you would like to do. We are here to honor and respect. And I want to express my personal condolences and that of the entire city and all of the people that have been working with Myra here in Jerusalem. Dan and Wendy, I hope you will take this message back home to your father and family and your brother. And the city of Jerusalem appreciates your whole entire family's work. We knew that you supported Myra in her actions. And I can only pay respect and hope that Myra's memory will be a blessing and an example for all of us into the future. Yehi zichra baruch.
Not everyone's aware of how this place began. But if there's certainly the Kraft family was instrumental in creating this field, but it required two. The second is a man that I would say I feel more respect for and honored to call a friend than any other political figure in the history of this country. I'd like to invite up, and it's my honor to do so, the former mayor of Jerusalem, the former prime minister of the state of Israel, Mr. Ehud Olmert.
Dan and Wendy, distinguished guests, there is always a temptation when you come to speak about a person who was a part of a very dominant family, to talk about a family. And the Kraft family is a very powerful and very dominant family. So I ask to forgive me in advance that I'll not speak today about the family, and I'll not even speak about football, although I'm very proud that I was instrumental in making this field possible and helping to create the beginning of what I believe will become one day, with Steve's endless efforts and with the support of the Kraft family, one of the most dominant and successful sports in the state of Israel, the American football. It's not the real football, of course, but the American football. I want to speak about Myra. And I want to tell a short story, which is, I think, very typical of the nature of Myra and the way she acted. She came to our place, I think it was when I was Prime Minister, and my wife Aliza was starting this program for young children. And they were sitting and talking, and Aliza told her that they plan to start a program together with the Haifa University about children at risk in general, and particularly young children from the age of birth, what has turned out to be later the program for which was called Atchala Tova. Myra pulled out a checkbook and wrote a check for $50,000 and gave to Aliza and said, "It's a great idea, take it." Now this is typical. Not big words, not big statements, but a very genuine and powerful personal participation and involvement in something that she believed in. One day it so turned out I had the Secretary of State of the United States visiting me for dinner at the Prime Minister's home. And I told Aliza, you know, I'm coming earlier today because I have Connie Rice coming to have dinner with me. She said, but I have dinner with Myra Kraft. So I said, okay, you know what? We will eat downstairs and you will eat with Myra upstairs at the family quarters. Myra came somewhat earlier, and I asked her to sign the book of guests. And that was the date and the time and the name. And then came Connie Rice. And also I asked her to sign the guest book. And she saw that 10 minutes before her, another guest came. So she looked at the name and she said, Myra Kraft. Kraft sounds familiar to me. Is she related to the Kraft family from the New England Patriots? So I said, yes, but this is not her claim to fame. So Condi, who was known to be very ambitious to become the commissioner of football in America, was somewhat surprised. And she said to me, then what is her claim to fame? And I said, I think that her claim to fame is her total dedication and devotion and care for education and children. I know what she is doing in America, and I also know what she is doing here. And we here are very proud of it. That doesn't mean that we were not very proud of the achievements of the New England Patriots in America. But for us here, Myra was a very modest person that was not one of the frequent public speakers, as sometimes we meet people that are involved in so many different areas of our lives. But she was inspiring and she was genuine. And this is something that those people, and we in our family were fortunate to be amongst them, who had the privilege of getting to know her personally, will never forget. Yehi zichra baruch.
I know that Myra and I shared a hero, a person that we all admired, say the most in the world, a person that did amazing, heroic things for the Jewish people. I'm talking, of course, about Natan Sharansky, former prisoner of Zion, minister in governments of Israel, and currently the chairman of the Jewish Agency. Thank you, Natan.
Dear Dan and Wendy, I'm almost trembling looking at this picture of your mother. You can see all her optimism, all her curiosity, all her determination, and all her love to all of us. I also have to confess that between Myra and Bob, I always preferred to talk to Myra, because with her we could see things eye to eye. With her we could joke that good things really go in small quantities. And what a good thing she was. Now, of course, when it came this sad news about her, she passed away, what you always do, you try to remember, go back, remember all the meetings. You try to think which of these meetings were especially important. And they go back more than 20 years ago. We met in Brandeis University and then went to their house, and then we met in our house in Jerusalem, and then on many sites of the absorption of new immigrants when big wave of new immigrants started coming, and then on opening their factory in Caesarea, and on numerous missions which she was leading to Israel. And you know what? I couldn't remember one non-important conversation. What I mean, you don't have small talks in your family, because in your family everything is important. And with her, Jewish people, Israel, her Jewish family, it was not simply important things. It was the meaning of her life. And that's why whenever we were talking with her, even for 2 or 3 minutes, it was all about the most important things in this life, the meaning of our life in this world. And she lived it every moment. Look, you children have a great zchut, but also great challenge. Because now you have to pave to your children the way which your great parents paved to you. And it's not simple, it's not easy. But always remember that our prayers, our sympathy, our love, our support will be always with you. Yehiyeh Zichra Baruch.
We would, of course, all see Myra here in Israel, so it was almost for us as though she lived here. And then, at one point, she invited us to go and visit her in Boston. I'm talking about 25 members of our national team. She said, an Israel Independence Day celebration is coming up. Why don't you all come over to Foxborough Stadium and play some games and show us what you can do. Celebrate with us. She was connected to Boston, and I think she wanted us to see that side of her life. And probably the man that knows most about how she dedicated so much of her time and energy to helping other people throughout the community of Boston, Massachusetts, I'm sure well beyond, is Barry Schrage, the chairman of the Combined Jewish Federations of Boston. Thank you.
Myra was much more than a volunteer leader to the people at the Combined Jewish Philanthropies, because she was really part of our staff and she loved our staff. So I'm really here representing every one of them whose heart is really broken. And of all of us at CJP, the people who were closest to her really were the people who traveled to Israel with her, because we saw really what was her very deepest love. Myra was in the West, but her heart was in the East. I visited Israel with Myra dozens of times on missions with Jews and non-Jews, with people of all backgrounds who loved being with Myra and who wanted to learn from her knowledge and her love and her enthusiasm. She was a great teacher, and it was always a joy to watch first-time visitors see Israel through Myra's eyes. She always had a special infection, enthusiasm, energy, curiosity, and love for life, but was always most fully alive in this place. When she was in Israel, she became again the teenager who just returned from her first teen trip to Israel, filled with love of everything Israeli and the cause of the Jewish people. More than anything, she loved being here with her sweetheart Robert and her beautiful children and grandchildren. She just could never get enough of Israel. She was literally in love with every shrub and tree and rock, as those of us who were lucky enough to travel to Israel with her and who heard her go on about every bird and flower we passed. Who knew that 500 million birds migrate over Israel each year? Myra knew. I think she learned it from Gidon over there. In Israel, she was a welcome friend in the homes of the great and powerful, but also cared deeply about the poor and powerless. Myra was an angel of mercy when Israel was in need. Today, I visited Beersheba and Ofakim to visit the JDC programs for those most in need. I knew that Myra was at my side throughout the trip, because whenever Jews were in danger and need, Myra was there. The danger wasn't created that would keep Myra away from Israel. Myra was an angel of mercy, but you didn't really know Myra until you saw her react when hypocrisy, stupidity, incompetence, betrayal, or just plain bureaucracy stood in the way of justice for the powerless. She was like the God of Genesis or an ancient Jewish prophet who would instantly cry out against those who abused the powerless and weak, the widow and the orphan. When she worked on the Boston-Haifa connection, which she was deeply committed to, or led the Israel Committee for her beloved JDC, she made absolutely sure that we had our priorities straight. Myra was the friend to the Kafkazi immigrant from the mountains of the FSU. And by the way, God help you if you ever forgot the Kafkazi immigrants from the mountains of the FSU. Or the Ethiopian child from Gondar. She was a friend to every helpless and unloved child in Israel. She was prepared to stand between them and anything that would harm or neglect them. Myra loved the work of the JDC and treasured her time as chair of its Israel Committee. Of course, Myra also loved her work for women's football right here at Kraft Stadium. She saw all these things as an important opportunity to do good, but also to bring Bostonians and Israelis together. She was deeply committed to the idea of partnerships in which helping was a two-way street between Boston and Israel. Myra truly loved the idea that women's football empowered women and loved and supported the league. But she also loved the idea that football could bring people together. Arabs and Jews, Dati and Chiluni, all in a spirit of cooperation and sportsmanship and love of Israel. There's a nearly full-size cutout picture in my office of my friend Myra and me taken on one of our missions to Israel. She's holding a tiny Ethiopian baby as if both their lives depended on it. That was our Myra, our Amos, our Isaiah, admonishing the oppressor of the poor or the heartless bureaucrat who ignored the cry of the helpless child, but also our angel of mercy clutching an orphan baby. That was our Myra. We will miss her terribly, but she will always be with us. She has changed our world, and her memory will always be a blessing. Myra was in the West, but her heart was in the East.
As soon as we heard that Myra had passed away, Yona, Mishan, and I got on a plane and flew to the U.S. to attend the Shiva at the Kraft family home. And when we were there, we mentioned that we really would love to be given the opportunity to make a memorial ceremony in Myra's memory. And we told the idea to Robert and to Myra's sons, including Dan. And Dan and his wife Wendy immediately said, we're going to be there. We want to attend the memorial, and Dan made it very clear that he's the continuation. The whole family loves Israel. The whole family has been here. Robert has been here many times. Of course, Myra was here many, many more times and had a really deep personal connection here, and maybe would have even thought about having an apartment here. I know she spoke about it with me on a number of occasions. And I think the continuation of the Zionist side of the family, the Israel-connected side of the family, is certainly represented by Dan and Wendy Kraft. Wendy, please come up with Dan.
Thanks very much. Hi. First of all, just want to thank everyone for coming tonight. Barry, who you just heard from, he literally got on a plane Sunday to get here just for this and visit Beersheba, and he'll be leaving right after this to head to the airport. So thank you, Barry. It's an honor to have so many distinguished guests, former Prime Minister Olmert and Mayor Bakavi and Natan Sharansky. Thank you all for coming. The words are very comforting. Obviously, the last month or so has been difficult for our family, but the outpouring of love and respect and support from our friends and our mishpacha, really, many of whom are here tonight, business associates, goes a long way in helping us get through this difficult time. As we've heard many times tonight, my mother loved this country. It's as simple as that. I don't know if I would tell my dad this, but I think she actually loved this place more than her native USA. And I remember being here the night the new turf was put down in the stadium and Hatikva was played after the Star Spangled Banner, the national anthem of the United States. And I remember my mother turning to me and saying, you know, this is probably the only country on earth where you could hear those two national anthems and have the audience greeted with both anthems with respect. And it was an interesting point, but it's probably very true. She was a child of the Holocaust generation, so she understood how this country represented a safe haven of refuge for Jews from around the world. For those who knew my mother, she was always an upbeat, positive, and energetic person. But when she was in Israel, she always had an extra bounce in her step. To interact with her here, you could literally feel the excitement and the energy just radiating from her body. It was an out-of-world experience. She simply loved to be here. She loved everything about the country, the people, the history, the culture, obviously, even the politics. And to my mom, everything that was made in Israel was quite simply the best. Whether that be the wines or the za'atar or the olive oils. And the gentleman seated to my right is the gentleman who would always give her olive oil. She would always come back loaded with all these goods, whether it was wine, olive oil, za'atar, to bring back home. And my brothers and I have 3 brothers, we would always joke, we'd say, Ma, why are you schlepping all this Israeli olive oil back home? You can go to the local supermarket less than 2 kilometers away and buy great Italian olive oil. And she'd glare at us and say, this is true. Italian olive oil is Drek. I hope I pronounced that correctly. It's Drek. The Israeli oil is the best in the world. And that was how she honestly felt. She would come to Israel every single opportunity she got, whether it was to lead a mission of Christians and Jews, to attend a bar mitzvah of a friend or family, to buy olive oil, or simply to tour with her family. Earlier in the century, when the violence got particularly vicious in the country, many American Jewish leaders shied away from visiting. Not my mother. It was during these times that she knew Israel needed her most. She would organize a trip and make the 12-hour journey over here like it was nothing. And once here, She would encourage the people on her mission to spend, 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 whether it was in the hotels, the restaurants, the museums, or the shops. It was her way of single-handedly pumping up the Israeli economy in a time of crisis. My mother's last trip here was her last trip was in March, just this past March. She was leading a mission with the governor of Massachusetts. Barry Schrag was on the mission, and there were Christian and Jewish business leaders from the Boston area. Just prior to the trip, she had received some disturbing news about a blood test she had taken. And she would have been easily excused for canceling the trip. But that was not my mother's style. She had made a commitment to many people, and it was her passion to share her love of this country and show these people why it was such a unique and special place that she cherished so very much. She spent almost 2 weeks here on that trip, visiting the sites and touring the country from north to south and east to west. She inspired her group to love this magical country as much as she did. Not once during the trip did she ever slow down or complain. She was an Eretz Yisrael, and no place on earth made her feel more alive or more comfortable. May her memory be a blessing to us all. Toda Rabbah. Sorry, just one other thing. My dear wife here, Wendy, has toured with me many times in Israel. And I'll just tell Shauna and the girls of the Israeli team, she's very strong and fast. So if you need a good receiver or outside linebacker, she's got Israeli citizenship.
We're coming towards the end of our program. We've prepared a brief film about Myra's life. Please watch it with us.